Hey, welcome. Today, we are diving into one of the most common traps our minds fall into, this illusion that we have to make an impossible choice. So, let's get right into what that actually feels like. Have you ever been stuck here, forced to pick between two things, and neither one feels totally right? It's this constant pressure. You can have a great career, or you can have a great family life. Your company can chase profits, or it can be good to the planet. Seriously, it's such a frustrating and, honestly, a really limiting way to look at the world. This whole idea that we have to choose one or the other, well, what if it's not a real choice? What if it's actually a mental trap, one that's designed to just shut down our creativity and back us into a corner? Today, we're going to learn how to spot that trap and, way more importantly, how to break right out of it. Okay, so first things first, let's put a name to this thing. We're going to pull back the curtain on these either-or choices that just seem to pop up everywhere, from our own lives to, well, all of politics. So the official term for this trap is a false dichotomy. It's basically a logical trick that forces this us versus them, black or white view of the world, and it totally ignores all the shades of gray. And more importantly, it makes us forget that we can create entirely new colors. It's a huge roadblock to any kind of real creative problem solving. So, how do we escape? How do we get out of the trap? Well, the answer is to go beyond the binary. And we do that with a super powerful mental tool called synthesis. Now, let's be clear. This isn't about some weak, mushy compromise. This is a creative and powerful act. Synthesis is kind of like the magic move here. It's all about taking the best, most valid points from two sides that seem like they're total opposites, and then you weave them together. You're creating a third option. Let's call it option C. That's just way better, more complete, and more effective than either option A or option B could ever be by themselves. And this right here, this is the core shift in your thinking. On the left, you've got binary thinking. Everything's a fight. It's A versus B. It's a win-lose game, and the world feels small and full of limits. But synthesis thinking on the right, that flips the whole script. It's no longer A versus B. It's A plus B equals something new, something better. It's a win-win mindset, and suddenly you're in a world just full of possibilities. Okay, theory is great and all, but let's see how this actually works in the real world. We're going to apply this synthesis thinking to one of the biggest, messiest fights in modern politics, the battle between class and culture. I'm sure you've heard these arguments a million times. On one side, you have the class argument. It says the root of all problems is economic. People don't have enough money or resources, so the fix is redistribution. Things like higher wages or better taxes. Then on the other side, you've got the culture argument. This one says the real problem is about status and respect. People feel invisible, disrespected, so the solution is recognition, things like better representation in media or culturally aware services. Now, that either-or trap forces us to pick a team. But think about it. What happens when you only focus on the money stuff? You often get a big cultural backlash. And what happens when you only focus on the culture stuff? Well, people start shouting about identity politics and say you're ignoring their real, everyday financial struggles. The truth is, both approaches, on their own, are incomplete. And this is where synthesis just clicks perfectly into place. See, real, lasting change happens when you tackle both problems at the same time. You absolutely need policies for redistribution, for material security, and you need policies for recognition, for human dignity. A great example? Think of a multiracial labor union. It doesn't just fight for better paychecks, it fights for respect on the job for all of its members. It's not either or, it's both and. Okay, let's bring this down to a more personal level. Let's see how this idea can work in our own lives. We're going to tackle that totally exhausting conflict that so many of us feel between trying to change the world and just trying to take care of ourselves. This quote just nails the false choice, doesn't it? If you pursue justice until you completely burn out, your work becomes nothing more than an idea, an abstraction. But if you only focus on self-care and ignore the problems of the world, it just becomes a self-absorbed retreat. We're constantly told we have to pick one. But synthesis gives us a new way to see it. It's not a draining trade-off. It's a sustainable cycle, a rhythm. You engage in the work, you do the hard stuff. Then, you intentionally step back to practice self-care and refuel. And then, you return to the work, but you're renewed, you're stronger. Each step actually fuels the next. And this reframes the whole conversation. Suddenly, self-care isn't some guilty pleasure or a selfish retreat. It's a radical, even political act. It becomes the actual survival strategy that allows you, the person trying to make a difference, to stay in it for the long haul. It's what keeps you in the fight. So now that we've seen just how powerful synthesis thinking can be, let's wrap this all up with a practical playbook. This is a tool you can literally start using today to break out of those binary traps in your own life.
So let's make it super practical. The next time you're facing one of those impossible choices, just pause and run this quick diagnosis. Ask yourself 3 simple questions. First, the redistribution question. What's the concrete, practical, material need here? Second, the recognition question. What's the emotional need, the need for status or respect? And finally, the big synthesis question. How can I get creative and design a solution that actually takes care of both?
And that brings us to one last thought to leave you with. Take a look at the so-called impossible choices in your own world, at work, in your relationships, in your community. What if they aren't actually dead ends? What if they're really open invitations? Invitations for you to stop choosing and start creating.